So, as I'm sure everyone's aware, the Percy Jackson series has just premiered, and I promised myself that I would reread The Lightning Thief for the show because I wanted to be that person to be like, well, in the book they did this. And I've been planning on reading this for months, and then life kicked me in the butt, and now here I am, the night that it premiered, and I'm still like, I can do it. I can read this. I mean, how hard can it be? It's not that big. We'll see what happens. I figured I'd do a little vlog just to showcase what I do when I read. We'll see what happens. I've never done something like this before, so I'm very excited. I'm very excited to watch the show. So I guess let's just get into it. So, after accidentally dropping my only light source and waking up my entire family at 1 in the morning, I was like, okay, I think it's time to just stop for the night. I did get halfway through though. Have a couple tabs there. I think there's lots of things I have to think about this book so far. One of it is that I think it could work really well as an audiobook. I only recently got into audiobooks, and what I've noticed is that I find if it feels more like you're being told a story compared to someone's just reading words off a page, I think that makes it a lot more engaging and more fun. I tend to DNF audiobooks quite a lot because I often find like, oh, I could just read the physical book and it won't take as long. I got really impatient. But it's only very recently that I've gotten into audiobooks where I'm like, oh no, this is fun, I'm enjoying it, and I find it's more, if you have like your first person and it feels less like, I don't even know how to explain it, but when someone's narrating an audiobook, there's a point where I just tell that, okay, you're just reading words, right? And I think it's very related to the writing style. If you have like something like The Secret History, for example, which I have here, I started it as an audiobook and I thought this kind of writing style just does not work for audiobook for me. I got really bored really fast. And like not even bored, but it just was like, this is taking too long. So I found a physical copy. But I think with something like Lightning Thief, I think it is very conversational. It's a lot of, oh, here's what's gonna happen soon. I didn't realize this was gonna happen. Oh, then I did something like this. And it feels like some kid is telling you a story. And so I think with a good narrator, it could be a really engaging audiobook. Not to say that the physical book is bad, obviously it's really entertaining, but that's kind of my big thought that I had. And another thought was that I do get a lot of nostalgia reading it, because the first time I read this book was actually in the 8th grade, and I'd read it for English class, which is interesting because I remember reading The Outsiders in 7th grade, and I remember how it made me feel. I remember like vague plot points, vague lines, whatever. But when I think about when I read Percy Jackson in 8th grade, 1 year later, I remember nothing. I remember I'm pretty sure we went to see a stage production of it. Like, I'm not sure if it was the musical, which I'm really into, or if it was just some stage play, but I remember we had gone to see it, but I don't remember what I saw, almost. I kind of have like very vague recollections, so it's like, do I like the musical because I actually remember it deep down inside, or do I just like it because it fits the vibe of the story really well? And then the next time I read Percy Jackson was in high school. I think it was 2019, 2018, and I read the entire series, just the 5 books, and I don't remember anything about books 3 to 5. I remember the first book, I mean, is iconic, and I remember the plot of it. I'd watched the movie, I've listened to the soundtrack of the musical a bit too many times, so I know the plot of Lightning Thief. Sea of Monsters I also remember to an extent, but then after that it's just like, no, I don't. I don't remember. So I've been wanting to do a reread of those books, mostly just so I can know what actually happens. I think, considering how much of a classic it is, and that I did kind of grow up with it, it's interesting how my reading habits have changed and how I kind of, I guess, react to the way I used to engage with books. So I think it's very interesting that out of all the books that I read, this one was one of the ones that I forgot. So it's a shame, because it's a really good book and it's really fun, and now that we're getting a good adaptation, hopefully, why not, I guess. What else was I going to say about this book? I feel nostalgic, but also in the sense that so much of the structure of the plot is just so, I guess, I don't want to say juvenile, but I want to say classic. I mean, when you think about it, it's like, oh, he doesn't know, but weird things always happen around him, and then one day things go terribly wrong, and everyone's keeping things from him, blah, 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 and then, I don't know, I was reading it and I was like, this is such a typical, I guess, middle school, high school type, young adult that honestly I kind of miss. I feel like maybe I'm not reading the type of fantasy I used to read, but I feel like the structure of books have changed so much now, that something like this is like, I feel nostalgic for it, I guess. And it reminds me of a lot of how I used to write when I was younger. The fantasy books that I would write about, like, Chosen Ones or whatever, kind of followed the exact same type of structure, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I'm almost reminded of what I almost could have made, I guess, in terms of how the story goes. Maybe I always took inspiration from this book and I just didn't realize it. But yeah, no, I love the wit, I love the humor, but I do think I've kind of like aged past the audience for this, obviously, and I can enjoy it because it's well done. But like I said, it's classic, but I don't know. I don't really know how to word it. I do really enjoy it. I think the characters are all really good. They each shine in their own special way. And I also enjoy like the mystery of like, oh, the lightning thief, right? They're trying to find out, well, where is his lightning bolt? Who stole it? Things like that. And they're kind of sprinkling things in throughout, which is very good. It's very entertaining. I mean, obviously, I know who it is. I know a good chunk of the book, but it's still interesting to try to catch that foreshadowing when it's there. So, what else? The suspense is really good. They're really good at building up suspense. Like I said, it's almost done in a very, almost like typical way, like in a textbook way, I guess you could say. Like how do you keep someone hooked up until the reveal? It's very like, noticeable when they do it, and it's not that it's bad. It doesn't need to be like, I guess it doesn't need to be like hidden or whatever. That's what you're trying to do. I'd say it's very good, very well done. It's very entertaining to read, such as you know, like when they're dealing with Medusa. Like that's pretty. I was kind of like hooked. I was like reading like page like this, you know. So yeah, very fun, very great. Only halfway done, like I said. We'll see if I actually finish before I start the show. But regardless, I have gotten past where the premiere gets to, I guess. So it's okay if I don't fully finish it. But yeah. Alrighty, so I finished the book, and then I completely forgot to actually like write a review on it. I normally write reviews for my books right after I read them. If not like immediately upon closing the book, then normally maybe like I'll go to bed. Usually it's pretty late at night. I'll go to sleep, I'll wake up and I write my review. Because if I don't, I tend to forget a lot of the thoughts that I had. And so it's like, well, what was I gonna say? And that did kind of happen for Lightning Thief, but there's also a lot that I do remember. I think the biggest thing is that overall it's just like such a joy to follow. It's so easy to root for these characters, to see them get put into these situations or put themselves into a certain situation and then see them get out of it. It's just so much fun. Like, it feels like you're joining these kids on their quest or on their journey, and it's just really fun. All of that along with the engaging narrative, or like narration style, as I've mentioned before, it's just so fun. And I really don't have any qualms about this book. I feel like the only thing I can say is that it's a little childish in the way some things are described, but I'm not going to fault a book for like younger audiences for being childish. I assume like as the series progresses, so will the narration, so will the story and the characters. So I mean, that's pretty much it. I think it's such a classic for a reason. It's such a like typical, I guess, hero's journey type of situation, and it's just so much fun. And I love how it's kind of ties things together within the book, but it also opens up the idea of like, oh, what is this new plot? And it had so much mystery in it. It was very intriguing, so much intrigue. And now we've gotten a couple of pieces of the puzzle, but they've just set up this entire like overarching storyline. And I'm really excited to continue reading to, see that storyline as it progresses. And the very ending with like the betrayal plot twist is like, oh, what a shame. When like you really enjoy Luke as a character, and then it's like, oh yeah, by the way. But it is really fun, and I think another thing that I really enjoyed was just like Percy and his relationship with his mom is just so pure and so genuine. I really adore it. I don't know, I feel like it's almost rare to see a parent-child relationship in a fantasy book the way it's done here. It's just so good. And the fact that it like drives so much of his motivations as well, it's just absolutely amazing. I had like so many more things tabbed, but these sticky notes suck. Like, half of them have fallen into the book and half have fallen onto my table, and it's such a shame. I have like they're like maybe like some one-off lines that I thought were really funny, or just like some scenes in general that I was like, oh, that's amazing. Oh well, whatever. But what I really did enjoy about this book is like really the stories that it based itself around. The fact that it's inspired by Greek mythology, and it's done like a modernization of like the gods and the heroes. Like, what would it be like if it was set today, for example? And I mean, I took one Greek and Roman mythology course in my first year. Every course I've taken since then has been like all STEM, and that one course was like my saving grace. It was like the only class that I got where I got to like analyze these stories, and since then I've been a little bit insufferable when it comes to like retellings. Like, there's some books that I have very strong opinions about that I'm mostly just like, well, I studied it here and because of that I think this. So I guess reading through this and like seeing all of the allusions to Greek mythology, I'm like, oh, I recognize that. Oh, I recognize this too. It's like, oh, why is Annabeth like scared of spiders? Because of Athena's whole thing with Arachne. There you go. And then they say it, and I'm like, I understood that reference. And it's just so much fun to read. And what I really appreciate as well is that like they really like go into how messy the gods are. Like, so much of Greek mythology is really just like some god couldn't keep it in their pants, or some god wanted to start a fight, and then humanity has to reap the consequences of that. And they try to portray that in this book while also maintaining its like, I guess, being appropriate for its audience. And I like it a lot. And it's funny because like the whole book is like, we have these preconceived notions of certain gods, but then as it turns out, it's like, oh no, it's not like some gods are good and some gods are bad. No, like they're all kind of sucky, and they're all kind of fun and interesting, and they're set in their ways, and they act the way they do in ways we don't understand for reasons we don't understand. That's kind of how it is. but that doesn't mean that these kids aren't allowed to be mad about it. And I think that's a very interesting theme to portray as well. And I'm really excited to see like how the series progresses, to like see how they continue showing that theme. Yeah, so what I really want to do is, I've been wanting to do this for forever, but I only read Percy Jackson and the Olympians when I was younger. So I want to get into this whole like universe. I know there's like a bunch of series that are in this world. And I started The Lost Hero a long time ago, but I started it as an audiobook, so I don't know if it was the fact that it was an audiobook or the different perspectives or whatever that I couldn't get into it, so I DNF'd it. But I'd really like to be able to like read like, oh, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Heroes of Olympus, the Magnus Chase, Trials of Apollo, like all of that stuff. I don't even know what order you're supposed to read them in, but I know that they're all connected in some ways, and I'd really like to actually see how this world is built and see everything that occurs to all of these characters as like the cast gets bigger, for example. And I'd really like to do that. I would call it the like super big Riordan verse of like 2024. I might call it. I don't know. We'll see how long it actually takes me to read all of those books. I do want to read Sea of Monsters like immediately. I wanted to pick it up immediately after reading this one. But I have so many books on my like, physical TBR. I tend to prioritize library books over books that I own, such as Percy Jackson and the Olympians. But it's like, oh, I just want to read it now, but I have time limits on my other books, so we'll see. Overall, yeah, it's like it's just such a fun book. Like, I don't know, maybe my university book club is doing this book in this next meeting, so I'm really excited to talk about it with them. Maybe I'll have other thoughts about it, but this is what I have to think about it now. So yeah, hope you enjoyed listening to me talk, like ramble about this book, I guess. And yeah.